Nano Machine. Bai, Anhongweolya. Chapter 367. The Trinity. Part 1. Woong Woong. A strange resonance could be heard from somewhere. Having completely eliminated Bloodmaster, Chun Yuan's gaze fixed onto one thing. The huge flame in the middle of the pond. Did she say that it was diluted with 10,000-year-old snow? Chilin, who were the embodiment of flame chi, generally overflowed with fire, and are often said to be born from flames. Therefore, even after their death, the flame that blossomed from the chilin had remained for nearly 200 years. However, the flames in the middle of the pond seemed different, toxic in a way. Why is that? The demonic energy in Chun Yuan's body suddenly shuddered. After sensing the resonance, the black haze around Yuan's body thickened, as if he couldn't control it anymore. I'm losing control over my demonic energy. He had experienced such a phenomenon only once before. It was when he had accepted the cold energy from the woman in the past. At that time, Yuan was only trying to create a balance with the energy in her body, but the greedy demonic energy in him had absorbed it, and he'd lost control. Is my greedy demonic energy coveting this flame too? Chun Yuan had recognized what the fluctuations of his demonic energy meant as he clicked his tongue. As if the massive energy he had wasn't enough, the demonic energy wanted to absorb another power. However, the energy he'd absorbed in the past was nothing compared to the one coming from the flame in the middle of the pond. Aren't you being too greedy? Demonic energy? Swallowing another energy wasn't anything new. The capacity to store energy would increase as a martial artist grew stronger, but there was actually a limit to it too. Moreover, just like the demonic energy, that flame was extremely hard to absorb. Wuong. Unlike Chun Yuan, who'd been doubtful, the demonic energy in his body had been eagerly trying to move. Slowly, the black haze overflowing from his body began to grow thicker, and so did the resonance from the flame, as if they were two opponents waiting impatiently for the moment they battled each other to the death. Wuong. Ah. It's going to explode? It hadn't. The huge flame had kept growing even bigger until it touched the ceiling above. The flame had released its energy as if it was rejecting the link with the demonic energy. It had refused the demonic energy getting any closer to it. TCH. The demonic energy responded violently to the flame's refusal, and Yuan's whole body got dominated by its overwhelmingly growing greed. The demonic energy showed no signs of backing away from the flames. Don't you think you are being too stubborn right now? Phew. As both energies had reacted to the opponent's actions, Chun Yuan had given up and decided to approach the source of this alien energy inside the flame. When he arrived at the flame, he realized that the flame wanted to destroy anyone that touched it. It was a normal reaction, since the flame belonged to a spirit beast. I'll protect my body with the opposite energy. CHHHH. Along with the black haze, an intense chill began emanating from Chun Yuan's body. The coldness was so strong that the vapor around him began freezing. Nice. Let's take a look. As he had wrapped his body in cold energy, Chun Yuan walked over to the pond. The water in the pond was boiling, but when Yuan's foot touched it, a ripple occurred on its surface, and surprisingly he didn't sink. Pang! 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 It was thanks to the wind steps. Chun Yuan couldn't walk on water, therefore he stepped on the air using this high-level technique. Hing! As Chun Yuan walked above the pond, the huge flame began to soar higher, expressing its refusal of his daring approach. The more the flame rejected, the more greedy the demonic energy inside Chun Yuan grew. It is difficult to breathe. Ugh. As the heat increased, the air got thinner. As a result, Chun Yuan took a deep breath and walked towards the flame. Weeing. Chiik. The moment the flame and the cold energy made contact, a burst of vapor erupted above the pond, as a white haze spread in all directions. Even though he was protecting his body with cold energy, the flame was too hot for Yuan's body to handle. The intensity of the flame was so terrifying, that if Yuan released the cold energy, it would engulf his entire body and scorch him. Whack. Are you trying to scare me? That's useless, you know. Duck. The flame released tremendous heat in order to prevent Chun Yuan from getting any closer. However, no matter how much heat the flame radiated, Chun Yuan approached closer and closer, until he'd reached the center of the huge flame. SHHHHHHHH. As he entered the center of the flame, a bright light welcomed him into the center. It was a light created by the strong heat. That's why he'd been unable to open his eyes and figure out what actually existed in the center. Nano. Wide field mode has been activated. Nano's voice echoed in his head and his pupils contracted. Before long, his eyes went dark and then immediately began to adapt to the light. Now I can see. As his eyes adapted to the light, he saw a hot red bead. This fist-sized marble was radiating enough heat to kill any living thing. What is this? The bead that Chen Yuan was looking at was at the epicenter of the flame. It was the source of all the spiritual energy of the chilin. Even after 2,000 years, this bead had protected itself with the flame and preserved its spirit. Wuong. The core resonated. It was still refusing contact. The flame seemed to be afraid of the violent and greedy demonic energy that was flooding out of Yuan's body. Can I really absorb this energy? The demonic energy would surely do it, but Chen Yuan couldn't stop himself from worrying. If he accepted this energy in addition to the cold energy and the demonic energy, Chen Yuan would have 3 kinds of energies. Well, I've already come over here, so? Chen Yuan, who hesitated for a moment, reached out towards the core. Since the Blade God's 6 martial clan had been aiming for it, then it would be better for Chen Yuan to take it for himself. Tak. Ching. Quack. His palms had been burnt because of the heat. Shockingly, his palms started burning. The heat from the flame had been fended off by the cold energy, but when he directly reached out and grabbed the core, the heat grew almost unbearable. It was like nothing he'd felt before. High temperature of over 3,000 degrees destroyed the user's energy shield. The burned area is quickly self-healing. Such tremendous energy. That explained why no one had been able to take this bead. However, Chen Yuan, who was supported by the cold energy and Nano's regeneration speed, was different. Guh. When Chen Yuan grabbed the bead with his hand, the demonic energy began to absorb the flame energy as if it had been waiting for that very moment. As the flame energy slowly got dragged into his body, Chen Yuan experienced extreme pain. The greedy demonic energy had begun absorbing it very quickly. Ching. Quack. Steam began to rise from his body as the cold energy protecting his body came in contact with the flame energy. If he accepted this energy as it was, Chen Yuan would instantly burn to ashes. Damn it. This is just what I expected. As flame entered his body, 3 types of energy began colliding violently. The cold energy and demonic energy had been in a state of balance, but now that a 3rd energy had joined them, everything quickly began to change. Bubble. The blood in his body began to heat up. The flame energy had begun taking over his body as he kept trying to control it. The Chilin's spirit was strong, and it slightly exceeded the limit of energy that Chen Yuan could absorb. Kung. Quiakak. While the energy was swelling up in his body, Chen Yuan couldn't stand the pain anymore and fell on his knees. The energy was so strong that even the top 3 ranked martial artists of Wulin would find it hard to control together. This can't be done. I need to stop the demonic energy and remove my hands from this thing. If this continued, the core in his body would burst and he would die. The problem wasn't the flame anymore. Chen Yuan forced the demonic energy which had been absorbing the flame energy to sleep and tried to remove his hand from the core. However, something unexpected happened. Guh. No. The demonic energy rose upwards? His demonic energy, located in his dantian, had begun moving up to the center of his chest. The stomach and chest were the vital parts for any human. No way. As the demonic energy moved towards his upper body, the energy from the Chilin naturally moved to the demonic energy's previous location. In the meantime, the cold energy and Chilin's flame began creating a balance with each other in his dantian. If things go well, a balance can be achieved. As the sense of crisis disappeared, Chen Yuan closed his eyes and began focusing on establishing harmony between the energies. What the hell is happening? There was one person who'd witnessed this entire scene. She was Ranyang. She tried to move in and bring out Chen Yuan, who had entered the flame, but her body got rebounded by some unknown energy. Just the force of the energy had made her body shudder. The fire is fading. She had been protecting the Chilin's flame in the underground cave for nearly 200 years. The flame that had never moved was disappearing right in front of her eyes. Ranyang couldn't take her eyes off it. How did this happen? It was no wonder that she was dumbfounded. At the orders of the previous emperors, she had previously tried to remove the core from the center of the huge flame. However, even though her entire body had been reconstructed to be flame-resistant, she was unable to go to the center, which had a different level of heat. Is he absorbing the energy in there? If that wasn't the case, the flames that protected the core would never subside. She couldn't believe it. Even though his body harbored cold energy, he was absorbing an energy which was of the opposite nature. Wouldn't something happen then? This was a meeting she had been waiting for 200 years. Since the Lord seemed efficient, she trusted that he could absorb the flame energy, but for one person to have both flame and cold, the 2 energies won't stay still. Ranyang turned her head and looked at Hubong, whose body was covered in flames. At first, she thought that her flames had been transferred to him, but unexpectedly, Hubong was gradually generating his own flames. I can do nothing but watch. It was the first time for Ranyang to witness both situations. She knew that she could do nothing but observe the two people who were undergoing tremendous changes. How much time had passed? Finally, there was some change. It started with Hubong. Whoa. The flames which engulfed his body had slowly subsided, and then disappeared as if his body had absorbed it. That was when Hubong's skin cracked. From one to many, the skin across his entire body continued cracking and an ash-like smoke slowly drifted off and away from his body. Ah! Phantom metamorphosis! Ranyang gasped. As if the chilin's blood was insufficient, he had taken half of her flame energy. She thought that something huge would happen, but for it to be a metamorphosis. Hubong's entire physical structure changed. No, he looked a lot better now. He slowly opened his eyes. This must be a dream. My goodness. The first words he uttered were of shock at him being alive. From the moment he'd gotten engulfed in the flames, he had regained consciousness, but had decided to meditate in order to calm the energy in his body. When Hubong finally opened his eyes, he was able to recognize the changes that happened to his body. He couldn't help but feel thrilled. That was when someone came up to him and said, "Congratulations." Whoa! Hubong was shocked when Ranyang, whose entire body was covered with scales, approached him. Ranyang looked at him with furrowed brows. Huh? The first words you say to the person who saved your life and made you change so much is, "Whoa? Ah. Then you must be the one with the flame." Hubong had been confused as he was dying, but he was certain that he'd witnessed Ranyang, who'd been covered in flames, kneeling and calling Chun Yoan her Lord and Master. Ranyang glanced at his body from top to bottom and spoke with a smirk on her lips. I guess the phantom metamorphosis was evenly done. Only after hearing those words did Hubong realize that he was but naked. Ugh! A red-faced Hubong immediately looked for something to cover himself with, and in the direction of the entrance, he saw a bloody body with clothes on. In a hurry, he stretched out his hands in the direction of the dead body, and as the energy rose, the body got pulled towards him. Duck! Hubong looked at the man's body, and couldn't believe what he was witnessing. The amount of cruelty that the body had suffered could only have been done by one person, his lord. Oh. For me, he did it for me. You get shocked at everything. She'd felt a little offended in the beginning, but couldn't help but laugh at how innocent Hubong seemed. He was deeply loyal to the Lord and had been ready to throw away his life. There was something very important she needed to know. Ah, can you release flames from your body? She was curious. Hubong had absorbed the flame without burning away or producing any red scales on his body. She had actually expected his body to burn to ashes. Flames? Yes. You might be able to release flames. The sensation of how the fire entwines with your body, oh. Crackle. Before she could complete her words, Hubong's body produced flames. It was the same as when she covered her body with flames. You can do it? In just one try, he had managed to use the flames. Ranyang was surprised at Hubong's ability to produce the flames without the red scales protecting his skin. This is amazing. This guy has truly absorbed the chilin's blood. Even the court ladies and other women could only display an incomplete form. It was a tremendous achievement. For the one who supports the lord of the demonic cult to acquire the real chilin's flame. Hubong was also shocked beyond belief, his eyes were wide open. Cute. He looked a little naive and cute to Ranyang. I know that it is shocking to have flames. No, not that, over there. Hubong pointed to something behind her with his finger. Whoa! At that very moment, an enormous energy exploded inside the room, causing Ranyang to turn her head. When she looked back, she saw Yoan in the middle of the pond, floating in the air. Floating. Even more shocking were the black flames that moved like a whirlwind around Yoan. It looked like the dragon of black flames was ascending. What happened? They weren't normal flames, but black flames. When she'd previously guessed that he had absorbed the chilin's core, she knew that something would happen, but this was entirely unexpected. With a trembling voice, Hubong muttered. The black dragon has descended for the Lord. Chapter 368. The Trinity. Part 2. The changes that Yoan was undergoing in such a short period of time were phenomenal. The black flames swirled violently around his entire body as he floated in midair. It was Ranyang's first time ever witnessing someone that was strong enough to absorb the chilin's blood. Ah, it's gone. She hadn't noticed it, but the huge flame in the middle of the pond, which had been protecting the core, had completely disappeared. Only ashes remained where the infernal chilin's core had been. Ag. He really absorbed the spirit beast's flame. Ranyang couldn't believe her eyes. Despite their infinite attempts, all those within the Guardians or the Imperial Palace had failed miserably. The chilin's flame, which would incinerate anyone and anything that got close to it, can be absorbed? Even though the chilin's blood is very dangerous to absorb, it would increase one's internal energy when consumed. But what is this black flame? She could accept that the chilin's core had been absorbed, but the black flames surrounding Chun Yoan were a mystery to her. The black flame was exuding a terrifying aura of death. However, a moment ago, he'd been releasing a different aura. Ah! Now that I look closer, even this man here has the same vibe. In confusion, Ranyang glanced over at Hubong. Although both of their energies did seem similar, the two weren't even comparable, probably because Hubong's was still asleep. The demonic energy was the essence that had been absorbed from the black Amugi's blood, dragon. Although it was the blood of an ancient spirit beast, Hubong, who had only absorbed a little of it, couldn't help but feel its resonance within his body. Is it even possible to absorb that kind of dangerous energy? Ranyang couldn't hide her astonishment. Having been the guardian of the royal shrine for over 200 years, she'd met numerous Wuling masters and warriors in the imperial palace, but she had never encountered a person with more than one kind of energy in their body. However, Yoan had managed to do just that. Surely, the great lord of the demonic cult. Wait, what is that? However, something didn't feel quite right to her. There weren't just black flames around him, cold black frost had also begun to crawl along his body. Cold energy. The shock produced by Yoan's black flame had made her completely forget about his third energy. Not just two but three. Is he able to create a balance between three entirely different types of energy? If that turned out to be true, it would be too shocking for her to understand. For three different types of energy to exist inside one person was normally impossible. But she was witnessing it with her own eyes. White Dragon Blade. With his eyes still closed, Chun Yoan stretched out his left hand, and the white dragon sword immediately appeared in it. Sky Demon Sword. Cha, 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 cha. As he extended his right hand, the black wristband disassembled and transformed into a pitch-black blade. Whilst Yoan was focusing on controlling his energy, two deadly weapons had appeared in his hands. Crrrrrk. Wuong. On the white dragon blade, black frost had begun forming while releasing a freezing cold. On the Sky Demon Sword, black flames blazed intensely. The simultaneous release of the three types of energy was a majestic show of extraordinary power. Oh my goodness! Whoa! Both Ranyang and Hubong, who'd been watching, couldn't hide their astonishment. The energy that the two weapons were exuding was beyond their imagination. If he could release the energy which he had just absorbed, just how powerful would it be? They didn't even want to guess. Ah, this is how it is. Chun Yoan, who was at the center of the commotion, still had his eyes closed. He had just achieved a perfect balance between the three different types of energy in his body in the form of a trinity. He had reached a higher level of demonic energy. This is a new chi that amplifies the power of attacks. If I use that, the sword chi can be boosted. He received the ability to achieve boundless chi. Yoan could now unfold the boundless chi alongside the air sword to make each sword release its own type of energy. I thought it was over. The people of Wuling would often call the end of the Supreme Master level the perfect Supreme Master level. They referred to it as such, because a human's abilities were limited when it came to controlling and using energy. However, with the right opportunity, even though rare, amazing things could really happen. Even Chun Yoan didn't quite understand what had happened inside his body. Boundless chi. The three types of energy within him were boundless, with each one having different attributes. Since they weren't connected together, something like a medium had to emerge for them to work. If not, only one of them could be used. Flash. Chun Yoan opened his eyes. Fat. He released both the white dragon blade and Sky Demon Sword. The two weapons fell from his hands into the ground in the middle of the pond. Crackle. Crackle. The energy of the two weapons flowed into the ground, causing cracks to appear. Black frost and black flames had appeared where the two swords had fallen. The weapons had simply fallen to the ground, but the aftermath had immediately affected the chilin's blood within the pond. Ah, no. Hubong noticed a change. Crrrrrr. Bubble. On the left side where the white dragon blade fell, cold energy began spreading into the pond, and on the other side, where the sky demon's sword had fallen, the water began boiling and releasing large amounts of vapor. Awesome! Is this the true power of the chilin? Even the 10,000-year-old snow hadn't been able to cool the chilin's blood, but the energy from the white dragon blade was actually freezing it. But, why did Yoan suddenly call for his weapons? What is he trying to do? Hasn't the Lord achieved a balance of the Trinity yet? Yoan's behavior puzzled them. But then Ranyang noticed something. Chun Yoan seemed to have something in his hand. Ugh! What is he doing? Isn't he empty-handed? They couldn't see anything, but it appeared as though he was holding onto a sword. That's what she'd thought when suddenly a black flame appeared in his right hand, which then formed into the shape of a sword. But the sword itself was invisible, only the flame around it could be seen. That wasn't the end. In his left hand, black frost also spread out and took the form of a blade. Just like the black flame, the sword wasn't visible, only the frost surrounding it could be seen. And no way. Ranyang was shocked. She had realized what Yoan was trying to do. What is the Lord trying to do? Of course, there was another person who couldn't guess what was happening. In a trembling voice, she answered Hu Bang's question. Invisible sword. Invisible sword, ugh. The invisible sword? Hu Bang, who had said it in a casual way at first, soon understood what Ranyang meant. There were numerous legends among the Wuling people who cultivate martial arts. There were legends like the beginning of time, the origin of Shaolin, the birthplace of martial arts, crossing of the river with a single reed leaf. The intangible sword was also one of them. Martial artists called it the divine master level. Still, there had been people within Wuling in the past who hadn't believed in the principle of the divine master level. However, in the past there had been one such person. A superhuman who could control volcanic energy and had been given the title of the undefeated swordsman. However, that man never carried a sword with him. In his curiosity, one of his disciples had asked him about it. Since I can use the invisible swords, it would be meaningless for me to use any other kind of sword. Even if he was considered a legendary swordsman, the disciple had taken his teacher's words as a bluff, and was in disbelief at the existence of such a thing. Because of that, his teacher had decided to show him the sword he could create by simply using his attribute energy. The disciple who had witnessed such an unbelievable thing, had bowed his head and apologized for distrusting his teacher. It was a legend which had been spread amongst Wuling since then, and from that time on, the people of Wuling recognized it as the mark of having achieved the divine master level. People had decided to call it the invisible sword as it was a sword created from pure energy. Is that really the invisible sword? I thought that, it was just my imagination, but the Lord of my time is really nothing compared to the current Lord. During the time when Ranyang had been in the cult, the Lord at that time had indeed been the best. Even though the Lord of the past was a powerful person, she doubted if he could absorb the Chilin's flame the way Chun Yoan had. She knew that Chun Yoan was going to get even stronger, and it was worth saying that no human could get rid of him. Ugh, then you mean to say that the Lord is using the invisible sword? Then is my Lord between life and death? Hu Bang began to tremble. Life and death. Another legendary place where the best of Wuling are said to go when they reach the divine master level. Among the people in Wuling, there were only a few who had reached the superior master or supreme master levels, but none who had achieved the divine master level could be found. That was one of the reasons why the people of Wuling said that a state which cannot be achieved in life cannot be achieved in death. That was why dealing with the invisible sword was called a state between life and death. If that really is the invisible sword, then he had to be between life and death. Ranyang answered Hu Bang's nervous question. That was when Chun Yoan shouted at the two, who were shockingly looking at him. Both of you, get back. Yes, Lord. It looked like he was trying to test the power of the invisible sword. After the two of them retreated to a wall on each side, Chun Yoan, as if waiting for them to move, let go of the invisible sword made of black flames and pushed it towards the opposite side. Wing. Ugh. Crack. Crack. A gust of wind was left behind the sword as it passed by, and a gasp left Hu Bang's lips when he saw it. Along with the tremendous speed that the sword moved at, the black flames penetrated through the wall. Wing. Oh my gosh. As the sword moved, its trajectory ended up creating a gash in the ground. And the places that the sword touched got engulfed in flames. Black flames that exuded an energy strong enough to burn anything upon approach. Once more. That wasn't the end. Chun Yoan once again swung the invisible sword made of black frost in the other direction. Swoosh. Crack. Crack. The same gash, left by the previous sword, was further deepened by the new invisible sword. The black flame, which looked like it was going to melt off the ground, began to subside as the black frost began to spread. Swords strong enough to destroy half of the underground. Moreover, Chun Yuan hadn't used any specific energy with the sword, he had simply used the invisible sword itself. This is the invisible sword. Ranyang was so shocked that she couldn't stop gaping at the marvelous sight. Even after living for so long, she couldn't shake off the thrill that she got from witnessing the legend being born in front of her. So this is how it feels, huh? Yuan nodded his head, as he got a sense of how to control the newly gained power. Since the consumption of energy was enormous, he decided to limit himself to creating only 2 invisible swords, and then realized that air swords too could be used this way. Should I stop now? He had already checked the new power he gained. Seeing that Hubong was safe, he decided to try out the invisible swords at a later time. He had to get out of the Imperial Palace before someone else caught them. Thud. Thud. Chun Yuan slowly descended from the middle of the pond and stepped to the outer side of it, as if stepping down from stairs. Tatak. As soon as his feet touched the ground, Ranyang and Hubong hastily rushed over to him at the same time and quickly knelt, shouting his joy. Lord! You have reached the Divine Master level. You reached the highest level one could reach, you were between life and death. They had used different words, but their meanings were the same. Chun Yuan, the current lord of the demonic cult, had reached the stage between life and death, a level considered to be a legend in Wulin.